Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful Friday. Very excited that the week has finally come to the end. The next one to conclude the entire week is the Sabbath, and I am sure preparations have already been made. You are looking forward to the Sabbath. Now, those of us that were bothered and worried about the month of stewardship, yes, some people call it the month of love, but here we have agreed to say February will always be the month of stewardship, and the emphasis has been stewardship, and the focus is on God, our love to God. Yeah, it's a month of love, but let's demonstrate our love to God by way of extending what we are giving God in terms of tithe, but also our love for God that we demonstrate in the offering that we give. So basically, the month of stewardship is coming to an end this coming Sabbath, but a number of weeks of prayers are happening to emphasize stewardship as well as family life dotted across other areas. But also very important meetings happening from the University Church of Zambia. A speaker is coming out there from South Africa, but also Horizon Church is doing the same. Many other congregations are doing the same with local preachers, which is obviously something that we are benefiting from if we are following. We did start this month by looking at stewardship issues, but money issues continue to be our discussion this whole month of stewardship, the month of February as it were. And on this program this week, we started looking at something very, very significant. That's the issue that is making noise in the country, not yet in effect, but people are giving their, comments, sentiments, misgivings about what was made known to us by the Bank of Zambia, that effective 31st of March, new notes will be rolled out in circulation. I did say on this program that when we look at the current notes we are using, they depreciate quite, quicker than the ones we've had in the previous moment. For example, the notes we had during Arabi's time should be from Manawasa's time, moving to Arabi until somewhere in 2013 when the notes were changed to what we are using now. The only challenge I had with those previous ones is that there are people who were forgetting money in the pockets, and when they are ironing, they iron that money. That's the end of it. You can't use it. So we came to the current notes that we are using, and trust me, these were also beautiful notes, really. They are beautiful to say, so to say. But then when they have seen their better days, well, I refused one yesterday on a bus. I told the conductors, you can't give me this one because on a. But anyway, we have been told new notes, family of notes is coming into circulation on the 31st of March 2025. And the Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwani, did say these current notes and the new ones will run side by side for a period of 12 months, which surely tells you and me that we have a lot of time. I am thinking it will not even take 12 months before we even stop seeing the old notes in circulation, but that's the duration that has been given. And to think that 12 months has been given, and others are saying, well, this was meant to punish political figures that in a way are holding on to the money, which has reduced the money in circulation. I am thinking 12 months is a lot of time to think that was the idea, but the explanation was given, and there will be a meeting, online meeting this afternoon, I think. Is it this afternoon or next Friday, where the Minister of Finance is going to engage the public on all these other issues, also including the status of the economy for this country and all that. But there are people who are saying the notes that are being introduced are going to affect this country to a point where inflation is going to go up, and obviously affects the outcome of all these other things happening. But also the concern is on the 200 kwacha note as well as the 500 kwacha note, where people are saying this is bad for the economy, because now we are saying They have seen that the 100 kwacha cannot buy a bag of millimeters, so let's put a higher note to ensure that we close on that gap. I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I don't even have a position. And that's the reason why we invited an expert. He was here on Wednesday, and today we are on part 2 of understanding the redesigned kwacha note. The understanding that we'll have to have after this should help us moving forward to appreciate this note that has been is being introduced into circulation. But then, depending on what the experts will say, if it's a bad idea, then we are going to say, well, there should be a reason why somebody is going to be asked to go on the drawing board and see if this can be reversed or not. But here we are. My guest on the program is Dr. O'Brien Ndlovu. I'm saying this one like one coming from Edzoloben in Zimbabwe, but he's here. Doc, it's a privilege to have you once again on this program. You were here on Wednesday, and you are back today to finish what we started. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure joining you to discuss these things, and I hope at the end of the program we'll be able to make some sense in what is actually happening and help one or two people to understand what is actually coming ahead of them. Thank you very much.
Indeed, and my name is Bright Sinkosi, your host on this program when I did start the program, but today we finish off with me as we get there. But like I did indicate, the Bank of Zambia has announced plans to redesign, and I want to believe that with what we have seen, the redesigning has already happened of the Zambian kwacha notes, which has sparked interest and debate among economists, policymakers, as well as the general public. Well, we fall under the category of the general public, really, because we also have a say. The very fact that the money is not in circulation, the Bank of Zambia is getting our sentiments and all that. But then, to ensure that we understand what the Bank of Zambia has done, and I did beg most of us in the media fraternity, program producers, that it is better we pick this particular debate from the economical point of view without really getting the comments. We can still get the comments from the political players and all that, but the economists are better placed to help us understand this from a natural or neutral point of view, and this is the reason why Dr. Ndlovu is with us in the studio as we zero into this discussion. You will participate by sending us text messages to the number 0976151517 and also slot in your comment or contribution or observation in our live feed of this program on our Facebook channel, Hope Channel Zambia. But also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel because this program is being streamed live there, Hope Channel Zambia. Your comments also can be accessed there. Follow us on TikTok, and we'll be able to follow you back as we continue interacting on our social platforms. Now, we did start, Doc, on Wednesday with Mwene. I did really follow the conversation that you had, quite insightful, and I pray that we'll continue on that trajectory with me.
I look forward to that.
Indeed. You really nailed it when it comes to the idea of having this conversation, but I want to pretend as though I didn't hear you say anything on Wednesday. The issue of the decision to redesign the kwacha notes, how does it sit with you from the economical point of view? Is it something that should be entertained, or maybe somehow there is something that was not done right which you feel maybe we should shelve off this idea?
Thank you very much, Bright, for such a wonderful question. And I'm imagining there are many people that are actually thinking in those lines, say, but why is it coming now? Why the redesign? Why have these high-value notes? And in addressing this question, I would actually want, like I mentioned last time, to actually separate into two components. All right. The first thing that we're actually talking about is the redesigning of the currency. So when you're looking at this, we've for now got to forget about the 200 and the 500 that have actually come, so that we just focus on whether we actually need the notes that look slightly different from what we are used to. And then the second part now is the one that will then look at the two high value notes.
Okay.
So now when you look at money, money is simply money because of what it is actually able to buy. You know, money is not like food. For food, you basically look at the way the food is presented is matters. So when you're looking at a meal, for example, if you're having rice, it could look plain white. Sometimes it comes quite colorful and appetizing. Yeah. So the color of the food actually matters because it's something that can actually affect one's appetite. But when you look at money, it is purely what it is able to give me out of it. So whether the money will look blue, plain white, and all that is immaterial. For me, all I'm interested in is that if I have this money, I am able to buy anything that I want and then it will be acceptable. Of course, the things that we have to worry ourselves of is the possibilities of counterfeit notes. And this is the reason why money has all these very unique features, and that is purely to prevent any other person from being able to make their own notes, basically being able to make counterfeits. And so this is why you bring in these security features. Now, with security features, I did mention last time that even when you have a phone, one of the security features that actually is in the phone is a password, is a PIN. And the PIN basically ensures that only you actually has access to your phone. Anybody else that does not have the permission, they will not be able to access your PIN. And so I am not coming from an IT background, but I have heard a lot of advice that one of the ways of securing your phone or ensuring that your phone is very secure is to develop this habit of changing passwords every now and then. This is not something that you could be doing on a daily basis, but again, it's not something that you have to run decades and decades with the same PIN. Of course, we know that a phone can't actually run for. My
address has the same PIN from 2005.
So if having the same PIN from 2005, the chances are that, and I'm not saying somebody will actually manage to get into it, but the chances that, and this is something that we've actually heard from the IT people, is that you have these scammers, and every time people may actually be trying to get into your password, and you know, sometimes there's a particular pattern that people actually follow when they're making a password. Okay. It could be one's year of birth, it could be one's name of their loved person, and so on. And so you might get in a situation where people could actually be trying these things. And over time, there's a chance that one may actually crack the password. So to eliminate that possibility, then we are advised to keep on changing. That is with the IT. Sure. When it comes with the money, in the same manner, there are people that would actually want to make counterfeit notes, and this is not something new. I think every Zambian has heard of counterfeit notes because we have actually heard on the news, the police are announcing that people have been caught with counterfeit notes. These could be kwachas or currencies from other countries. So this is something that is actually normal in any society. And so how does the central bank or the government ensure then that we minimize such possibilities? One is that they have to keep on improving on the security features of these notes. But then how do you improve on the security features of these notes? Obviously, you've got to use the technology that is the most sophisticated at that particular time. But then you and I will agree that technology is something that is actually evolving. So what was impossible, say, 10 years ago is now possible. So the printers themselves are also getting more and more sophisticated. And so it's just imperative that those that are making the currency must also continue to advance on that. And I think that is one of the reasons that every country, and by the way, this is not just Zambia that is actually doing this. All the other countries are also, they keep on improving on the looks, on the security features of their currencies. And this is something that was actually emphasized in this particular case that we are looking at, that one of the reasons that they are actually bringing this new family of notes is to improve on the security features of the notes. And by saying that, we're basically dealing with just the issue of changing from one set of notes to another one, and not necessarily dealing with the issue of the 200 and the 500 that have come in. Now, coming to the higher value notes, again, we have to look at why do we actually have money in society? What role does money play? So one of the roles that money plays is we need to use it for transactions. So when you are moving from one place to another, when you jump on a bus, they want the money. You buy a bottle of water, they want money. So everything that you're basically transacting is involving money. And then the other one is money also has to be used as a store of value. So not everybody will manage to have cattle, have houses, have all these other assets. So it means money becomes another alternative. And then there could be cases where I'm actually moving from one place to another, maybe to go and take part in these very high value transactions. So in that case, it means you are looking at a family of notes that will be able to play all these different functions. Last time I did give an example, or basically ask a question, say, what do you think would happen if we only had 10 kwachas in society? It would be easier to get on a bus because most of the buses, either they would demand for 1 10 kwacha or 2 of them. But then do you see yourself buying a car from 10 kwachas? Virtually impossible, quite difficult, because it means you would have to carry a bag of them. Then what would happen if you only have 100 kwachas? Well and good for those that are involved in these high value transactions. You are buying a car, you are buying something big. Yes, you need 100 kwachas. But what about the children when they want to buy these snacks and the candies? Of course, it becomes very difficult. Now we have to do this. Just know it will be 20 of them for 100 kwacha. But what if I don't need the 20 of them? I just need one. So it means money has got to be able to play all these roles. That means we need money to have the smaller denominations because we need them for small transactions. But we also need the higher value denominations because we need it for higher value transaction also to be able to keep money as a store of value. And over time, you might have realized that 100 kwacha was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, in 2013, I think somewhere thereabout. And at that time, 100 kwacha was able to buy quite a number of things because, I mean, the price level was low compared to what it is actually today. But then over time, the value of that 100 kwacha note is actually eroded such that now just to buy a bag of meal like you've mentioned, you need 4 of them. To go and buy a cow, I don't know how many would actually need. To go and buy a plot, buy a house, you might actually need a suitcase. So what does the central bank do in such cases? Then they realize that the higher value note is actually now, its value has been eroded. And so that is the reason then you think you keep on introducing higher value notes. And the reason we are actually doing this, I think it has to be clearly understood. Last time I did give an example of, over time, so we could actually start with shoes. So for somebody that is young, still in their growing ages, you know that they need to be changing shoes every now and then. Not because those shoes have worn out, but because the foot itself has outgrown the shoe. And so it means you now need to get a bigger shoe. And so the reason why we are actually having this is that our price levels, as measured by inflation, we've actually been coming from an episode where we've actually been having a very high inflation rate, which means that over time the prices have been going up, and we don't see them going backwards. And so when the price levels are going up, that means we also need notes that will be able to match the prevailing price levels. And that is the reason why we have to keep on introducing high value notes. And this is not something that is happening for the first time. Everybody would agree that from the time they were born, all these notes that we are having now, they are not there.
They're not there.
But they've been gradually introduced as the prices are going up.
I need to pick your understanding, though, your expertise, though, on the comparison that we have to make over the high value now. And if you remember correctly, there was a time that we rebased our currency to what we have now, where we knocked down some 3 zeros and all that. Don't you think this redesigning of the notes, giving us that higher value, is in a way telling us that we are again going back to where we ran away from? And is that good for the country?
Well, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think in the 90s, the highest value note, if I'm not mistaken, was actually 500 kwacha. In the 90s, was, I remember, I think I was very young at that time, but I think that is what we were actually having. So it was a 500 kwacha note. Now, where is that 500 now? Now, after the rebasing, it means every note was actually divided by 1,000. So it means the 500 then, if you divide it by 1,000, it gives you half. And the half in monetary terms, that is the 15 ngwe. So it means the 15 ngwe that we are actually having at the moment was the highest note that we were having in the 90s. So we had the 500, and then I think in mid-90s, then we had the 1,000 and 5,000. And then I think in the 2000s, we had the 10,000 somewhere, and then 20,000, and then 50,000. And in 2013, I think when the country was actually doing the rebasing, government also took advantage to introduce the 100. At that time, it should have been called 100,000, 100,000. But because it came at a time of the rebasing, then it basically just became 100. Of course, I know that in our vocabulary, the 1,000 actually kind of carried on for quite some years. And even now, there are still people that will be selling a loaf of bread and they'll tell this is 20,000 when they actually mean 20 kwacha. And so this is something that is ongoing. This is something that is actually ongoing. And the major cause behind it is that our price levels are kind of growing at a very high rate compared to the other countries. If you look at countries like the developed countries, the USA, the Britain, their levels of inflation are so low that it takes a lot of years for one to actually see that the prices have changed. And so those countries then, they tend to have very stable prices. And because they have stable prices, then they do not need to actually keep on adjusting these prices. Now, your concern is that we are going back to what we were before the rebasing. That is inevitable. But then what is the cause there? The reason is obviously the prices are going upwards, and so we'd have then to ask ourselves is why are prices going upwards? There are many factors that are actually driving prices upwards. One of them is that, you know, Zambia is mainly an importing country. And so whenever our currency depreciates relative to the other currencies, it means the price of imports will go up. So the first one will actually be the price of fuel. And because the fuel is being used in almost every sector of the economy, you increase the price of fuel, then everything will just keep on changing. So bread will increase by 1 kwacha, transport fare will go up by 2 kwacha, and so on. So this is something that I don't think we would actually have control over, because this is how economies just basically function, that as long as our industrial base remains weak, we continue to be dependent on imports, we will obviously continue to import this inflation. The other one also is our production is quite low. And it's even worse, I think, in the past 1 or 2 years because of the disasters that we had. So our economy is still highly dependent on the unknown weather, on climate. So when it rains very well, Zambia is very happy. When it does not rain, every sector of the economy is crying. So it starts with agriculture, and because the agriculture is producing our food, when there is no food, there's no one that will be happy in the economy. When it doesn't rain, then there will be no electricity. When there's no electricity, nobody will be, and these are sectors that are basically feeding into all the other sectors. So it means as long as we remain dependent on climatic variables, these things obviously will be very difficult to control. And as the prices continue to go up, it's just inevitable that even the currency must continue being changed to match the prevailing price levels.
It appears to me then, Dr. Ndlovu, that as an economist, you are comfortable with the decision to redesign our notes. Yes or no?
So the decision, you see, we can again pick it from the shoe and the foot issue. Sure. So the first one is a foot that fails to get into the shoe. That is when you realize that actually I need a much bigger shoe. But when you buy the bigger shoe, when you buy a new shoe, does it cause the foot to actually grow bigger? No. I think it only becomes more comfortable. So in the same way, we said that money has got to play the role that it is actually intended to play, and that is being used in transactions also functioning as a store of value. And for money to be able to play this role, there's a way that you must actually have these notes. That means the notes themselves must actually be enough to be able to play out all these transactions. And so since prices are growing over time, if we hold the notes constant over a long time, then that means you would actually need to be carrying stacks and stacks of currency for you to do any transaction. I remember when we were growing up, I mean, people used to joke about certain countries that have faced these high levels of inflation. I think we have the story of Germany during just before or just after the First World War. We have countries like the DRC, just our neighbor here, Zimbabwe there. These are countries that have passed through phases of very high levels of inflation where prices are actually changing on a daily basis. And so if the prices are all double, what do you do with the currency? If you don't change the currency, that means now you need to carry double the amount of paper. Because basically currency is paper, right? Yeah. So you need to carry double that. But then over time, it just becomes inconveniencing because now you can imagine if I have to go to Nakonde to go and buy anything from there, anything that is worth, say, 100,000, the amount of money that I have to carry would actually be visible on me, unless I have to carry it in a suitcase. And that is a challenge when the notes are actually lagging behind the price levels. So you simply need to have currencies that are actually matching the kind of transactions that are happening in the economy. In the past, some 10 years ago, much of the transactions that households are actually involved in were just maybe between 100 and 1,000 kwacha. When you go into a grocery, you actually be able to buy quite a number of items from 10 notes to 10 100 kwacha notes, which is giving you 1,000 kwacha. This time around, if you go in with the same notes, the same 10 100 kwacha notes giving you 1,000, probably you just come out with a bag of mini meal, a container of cooking oil, and maybe some candies on top, maybe one pack of sugar on top, and then candies on top. The money is gone. It's gone. So for you to be able to buy the same kind of trolley that you're purchasing from that money, it means now you need to carry more and more money. The other challenge that you also face is that the machines that are designed to process money, so the common one is the ATM. Now, I don't know if you've realized actually that the configuration of the ATM is that one, it can only store a certain amount of paper notes, not irrespective of what the value is, whether it's 50 or 100 kwacha. It has a maximum volume that it can actually hold. And in the same way, even when it is dispensing, it is configured to dispense a certain maximum number of notes. And so when those notes are of low value, and that is what happens actually when you go on an ATM, of course these latest ones actually, they are able to show you what sort of notes are actually inside there. Yeah. So there are some, when it has a 50 kwachas only, and when it has 100 kwachas only, that also affects the maximum amount that it can actually give out. So in many cases, if it has 50 kwachas only, it can only give a maximum of 2,000. When it has 100 kwachas in it, maybe it can actually give up to 4,000. And these are changing, so I'm speaking from my experience. And so the limitation is because of the value of the notes, because it is configured to dispense a fixed number of notes. So whether it is giving out the tens or the hundreds, if it is configured to give out 40, it will always give 40. So whether it is giving out the tens or the hundred, the number of papers that it will actually issue will always be set at a certain limit. And so the disadvantage with that is that if I need to go and withdraw, for example, 10,000 kwacha, it means I've got to do it in batches, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. And each of those transactions, you know, it costs money. Yeah. Because the charge is per transaction that you are actually executing. But when you have these higher value notes now, when we have ultimately have the 500 kwacha note, and then ATM has that, it means 500 times, say, 40 units, it will probably be able to give quite a substantial amount of money. Okay. And these things are coming in because the price levels have gone up, the income, everything basically has gone up money-wise. And so if everything has gone up, it means even the family of currencies must be adjusted to match the prevailing price levels.
In terms of advantages and disadvantages, if I'm following you, this has come at a right time, considering what is prevailing in this country, and if I have gotten you correctly, you are saying yes to this idea that the Bank of Zambia has put in place. I'm itching that we touch on the issues of the economy really, but before we even get there, there have been concerns, and I'm privileged to have you, where people are saying the Bank of Zambia will run at a loss because you are printing money. Instead of investing the money you are using to print money into the economy to ensure that things are going to move correctly as people are expected. So people think this redesigning of the money is an expense on the part of government. Do you have anything to say with that, regarding that?
Well, so anything that the government does, so whether they are redesigning or actually running the same old currency, because remember, I think you remember very well, just some few months ago, there was a concern that was it these lower value notes, I think the 2 kwacha and the 5 kwacha, people had raised the concern on their quality, that they seem to be depreciating faster. Yeah. And the reason is very simple, that almost everyone from children up to adults will be dealing with a 2 kwacha, will be dealing with a 5 kwacha, but not many will actually be dealing with the 100 kwachas, because if you find the 100 kwacha in the pocket of a toddler, you get concerned. Oh, please, this money may get lost. But if it's a 2 kwacha, it's fine. Give a child to go and buy whatever you want to buy, sweets, candies, and all that. So it means these lower value notes, the 2 kwacha, 5, and of course even the 1 kwacha, sometimes the central bank would say these are high velocity in terms of speed. So the rate at which these notes are changing hands, used in transactions, is quite higher compared to the higher value notes. So for a 100 kwacha note, for example, it may be only touch it once in a day. But for the 2 kwachas, so one's buying this and all that, so they're actually changing hands at a very higher rate. And because they're changing hands at a very higher rate, it means even the depreciation is affected by that. And so the question that you'll be asking is, what happens with those monies that depreciate, that lose the quality? They are retrieved. So once you take them to the bank, you don't get them back. So when you deposit these worn out notes in the bank, when you are going to withdraw from the bank, they will not give you the same ones. They will give you notes that actually look better, which means that over time, the central bank actually keeps on replacing this worn out money. So it means that cost is something that is actually ongoing. Of course, you can't compare it with the cost of actually doing everything at once. But this is a cost that the central bank actually keeps on incurring on a going basis, because as we are using these monies, they wear out, and when they wear out, they have got to be replaced. And so I know it could be costly on the part of government, but this is something that is inevitable. So there are a lot of things that are quite costly, but then they are necessary.
It has to happen. So in my mind now, I am thinking, Doc, what they're printing has to be equivalent to what we already have in circulation, so that everyone has the eco share. And so it simply means that the expenditure is on the part of government quite on the higher side, because even the ones that they'll phase out, I don't know what will happen to them anyway, but I'm just thinking. Let's drift to the economical impact really of this particular decision that the central bank has made. And I start on this note. These redesigned notes, how will they affect the issues of inflation? I think I heard you talk about inflation, but also let's talk about the issue of interest rates, because this is a thorny issue again in this country at this particular time. But overall also, how will this really affect the performance of the economy in this country? So 3 things coming: the issue of inflation, the issue of exchange rate, and generally the economy as a whole.
Yeah, so I have listened to those concerns. I have also read, especially on social media, where many people are expressing concern that with this new money that is coming in, especially the 200 and the 500, because these are the ones that will be new, that this is likely to cause inflation, that this is likely to disturb the economy. But, you know, speaking from an economics point of view,
sure.
When you look at the effect, the first thing that maybe we need to look at is how will it affect the amount of money that is actually in circulation. Okay. how will it affect the amount of money that we have in our pockets? So whilst the central bank will introduce these new monies, there will be nowhere where we are going to queue to receive these monies. So that's the first point that we need to take into account. So then how do we actually access this money? So for the redesigned notes, so if you have a 100 kwacha odd, the 100 kwacha new, it will basically be the same money. The purchasing power will be the same. That means whether you are using the old 100 kwacha note or the new one, the amount of commodity you'll be able to buy from that will remain exactly the same. And so the shop that will accept the old one will also accept the new one. And so the two of them are basically equal if we need to bring it from a mathematical point of view.
Sure.
The higher value notes also, they are not coming in to add to what is already running in the economy, but they're basically coming to replace. So for you to be able to get a 200 kwacha notes, that is replacing 100 kwacha notes. So that ultimately, the amount of money that will actually be in circulation will be fixed, will be the same. Or in other words, it will not be affected by the coming in of these new notes. The only thing that is happening there is that where one is supposed to have 5 100 kwacha notes, you will be having a single note. So in that case, it means the purchasing power, how much I can actually buy from that, will remain the same. So if I want to go and buy a bag of mini-me, I'm not very sure what is the price of mini, but it should be, I think, around 3 something, right? Sure. So if you, for example, mini-me is 3, let us assume, you know, economists are very good with assumptions.
I know, right?
That when we don't know the correct answer, we can simply assume that any number can actually be a correct answer. So if we assume that mini-me is 350 kwacha, so, and I have a 500 value in my pocket. So that 500 could either be, I only have 1 500 kwacha note, or I have 5 100 kwacha notes, or it could be 10 50 kwacha notes. Once I present that, whether I present a single note or multiple notes, the change I will get will remain 150, because to be 500 minus the 350, it will still, I will still remain with 150. So if I am dealing with 50 kwacha notes, it means I'll have to give away 7 of them and I retain 3 out of 10. The 3 I remain with is 150 kwacha. If I have a single 500 kwacha note, I'll have to give away everything. The person selling it, they'll be obliged to give me change. That change will either be 100 plus a 50 or 350s in whatever form that it actually comes in. The point that we must be driving home is that the amount of money that we are going to have will not be affected. So people could be concerned that, oh, maybe, you know, we are coming from a phase where they've been concerned that, no, there's no money in circulation and all that. And so if there's been no money in circulation, the coming in of these new notes is not changing that. So that situation will remain. And so if the amount of money in circulation will remain the same, it also then follows that the effect on the economy from an economics point of view will be 0. Because the coming in of new notes is actually replacing some odd ones. A very simple example that I can actually give is, suppose you are carrying, say, sugar. You know, sugar comes in these 1 kg packs. So if you have 10 of them, and then someone said, no, instead of having 10 1 kgs, why don't we have 5 2 kg notes? Does that change the amount of sugar that you actually have?
No.
It doesn't, because the 2 kgs is actually exchanging for 2 1 kgs, and that is exactly what is happening with the money, so that the amount of money that we actually end up having, for those that didn't have money, they will still not have the money. For those that have the money, they will continue having the money. So this whole episode will not change anything where money is actually concerned. And because it is not changing anything on the amount of money that is there in circulation, it then follows that it will not have any effect on inflation.
So the performance of the economy really will still be the same as it is now. And one now wonders why then consider redesigning, because it doesn't add any value to what people are expecting, if not creating a worse situation because you are going to incur a cost as a country to that effect. But then I did also ask on the issue of exchange rates. But maybe let me redefine that by trying to look at the impact these redesigned notes might have on the foreign investment as well as trade. Does it, again, in this case, change anything, or it still remains the same?
So everything still remains the same. But of course, there's one angle that maybe we need to look at it from. You know, when you're dealing with inflation, there are many causes of inflation, like I have mentioned already.
Sure.
But there's also one that has to do with the confidence in the economy, the perceptions. So when people think that prices will go up, then in advance, they start to ask for a higher pay. So when a shopkeeper thinks that, oh, the next time I'm going to make orders, then the prices will have gone up, then they might be forced to adjust the prices of what they're actually currently selling. Because what you don't want is to sell everything from a shop, and then when you go to make a new order, the money is not enough to do that. So expectations or perceptions are quite important in economics. And that is why I think you've heard from the central bank, they've actually made an indication that they will engage in a very robust sensitization drive to basically sensitize the people that these new notes that are coming in, we've done this before, and we are doing it now. And when we do it, we don't expect it to have any impact on how much money will actually be in circulation. We don't expect to be able to put in new money in the circulation, nor to withdraw money in circulation. You are simply exchanging. So you are giving away a 100 kwacha note in order to get a 500 kwacha note. So at the end of the day, the effect is basically is zero, because I mean it's not having any impact. But of course, when perceptions are not properly managed, perhaps that is where you could actually have a problem, because you know, when people have different expectations, when people are made to believe that this is likely to cause this disturbance, then the reaction to that expectation is what may actually cause a disturbance. So the action itself is not actually having any impact. It's like, you know, someone lies to you that, oh, the food that you've actually taken, somebody has just died from that food. Biologically, you also get affected. So first it will be psychologically,
Yes.
and because your psyche is affected, the biology may also follow suit. So that even a little itch on the throat, you start to cough, you start to feel like you want to throw up. Well, I mean, it was just a lie that somebody has died out of. I've heard of a story, by the way, where you know people are getting these wild foods from the bush, and then the first thing obviously is you want to give them to a dog to see if a dog survives. Then we can also eat, and then after some time, someone just comes, oh, I found your dog is actually dead by the roadside. But then you see this family had already eaten that food. And so they worry now, oh, now that the dog has died, are we also going to die? Of course, later on they realized, no, actually the dog was bashed by a car, so it means the cause of death was totally different. So it means, but you see, such a lie, sometimes it can actually affect your body, especially if it is not well managed. So similarly, the coming in of new notes is not having any impact on the economy, but depending on how society actually reacts to it, that is what may actually be problematic. And that is why it is very important that we actually sensitize one another in terms of what will be the effect of this on the economy, what will be the effect of this on individual pockets. Because, you know, when we are reasoning, we can talk at a macro level. We tend to feel the impact of the economy at an individual level. So I feel myself when I don't have the money, people will see me smiling when I have the money, because the feeling is at an individual level. So what is it that I think will actually be happening with this one? So the central bank, I think, have made an indication that there is going to be a lot of sensitization to tell people that actually there's nothing that will actually be happening. It's just the money that we are actually changing. And this is not the first time we are actually doing this. We had the 100 kwacha introduced in 2013. All these notes actually, they found us. I think at the time I was born, all the notes that were there at the time I was born, none of those notes is still there. So all these others have just come in.
To insinuate that this could just be a politically motivated move, and where other people feel, well, it's wrong timing, really, on the part of government. And we're hearing people who are saying, well, we'll not use these notes if they go ahead without considering what people are saying against the introduction of the kwacha notes. I really don't want you to go into the political response, but just to look at the notes being introduced into circulation. Like you are saying, it's not the first time that this is happening. It has happened before, and those of us that have lived long enough are able to document and say, we were here, we came there. There are certain kinds of coins that we never found, some of us. We hear you had those coins that had a hole on the center, and we never used them at the time that we were born. And things keep changing, of course, reducing in terms of value and whatnot. But then, should one have the luxury of saying, well, I'm opposed to what the central bank is deciding, and so I'll choose not to use this currency? Is that a fair undertaking for the nation?
Well, you know, money, by law, money is a legal tender.
Indeed.
That is, for one that is actually selling anything, you are obliged to accept money that is in circulation. And so when we get to that date, 31st of May, or let's say when we get into April, when we get into April and we have these new notes. So we've been told already that these notes will actually trade side by side for 12 months. Now, 12 months is a very long period of time, such that even one that could be having money, there's no need to worry that, or maybe my money will now lose value. Because, I mean, over 12 months period, it means whatever reason you're actually keeping that money, you would have actually engaged in that transaction. Because remember, we said that we keep money for many reasons. Sure. Sometimes it could be store value. I want to keep it maybe because it's something that I will actually be buying the other day. So over 12 months period, I mean, I should have bought whatever that I'm actually planning to buy. And so the actual exchange of this money may not actually be something that you will be doing consciously, but you just realize that over time, the old money will actually be reducing in circulation as a new money is coming up. Sure. Because every time that you are making a deposit in a bank, you are taking back the old notes. And whenever you are making a withdrawal, and by that date, all the ATMs will only be dispensing the new notes. New notes. So it means whenever you go and withdraw, you have a new note. You go and deposit, the old note is going. So that exchange will be running for 12 months. And at the end of the 12 months, very likely, if there will be any odd notes that will be remaining, sometimes it's because people always want to keep these odd notes as souvenirs. Because there are beliefs that when a wallet or purse is having some money, then it's able to invite more and more money. Just like I've seen people that are still keeping those plastic, remember the polymer notes, people still keep those things. I mean, there's no harm. But at the end of that 12 months, for trading purposes, I'm sure all the old notes will have actually gone. And whether one actually has an option to reject or to accept is another thing, because, I mean, we'll get to a point where the old notes are no longer there. Think of the time when we were doing the rebasing. We had those that had the 3 zeros and those that are without. Did you realize at what point the old currency actually disappeared? It's very difficult to tell, because it just kept on reducing in circulation until now. If you have to find any, it could be a lucky one.
Some of us don't even remember how they used to look anyway. So, but then also the debate in the country. I want us to touch on the long term, and we'll wind up on that note. But before then, there are people who feel the redesigned notes are not of a national character because of certain features that have not been included, while other features have been included. For example, the big contention is of a freedom statue that is not on the current notes. The coat of arms also on the paper notes is not there. And people are saying this is a miss on the part of the central bank.
Well, you see, when you look at these national symbols, I don't know how many we actually have, but there are quite a number of them. And then, of course, the role of money is to be used in transactions. That is the purpose of transaction, is store value and all that. The issue of which symbols actually appear on money and which ones don't appear, that's more of a decorative, you're basically just decorating the money. Because I mean, for the purpose for which money is actually meant for. So whether it has any feature or none of those national symbols, it will still buy millimere. So the people that are actually looking at it from that angle, in Africa, sometimes we tend to think that the value of something is in the name or in the look. And that is why perhaps if you follow soccer, for instance, most of these African soccer teams who have these very fierce names, names of very fierce animals. You have the teranga lion, our own, the chipolopolo actually symbolizes danger because that's a bullet. Yeah. You have the super eagles, you have these super something. Then when you look at the other side of the world, it will just be Spain. This is just Italy. You don't tend to get those very fancy, motivating names. And so I haven't had the chance to look at, to have a closer look at the picture to actually see what has actually been there and not. So on that basis, maybe my comment is actually quite limited. But the fact is that money actually does not need to have all those features for it to be able to function as money. What people are now just asking for is that, oh, even when you have a school uniform, then it should have an eagle, it should have a statue, it should have this. I mean, the reason a child is going to school is just to go and learn. So whether there's actually an eagle in the uniform or not doesn't affect their ability to learn. And so similarly, whatever that the central bank has actually chosen to put on the money, that is a choice for now. If you get another set of people to make a choice, they'll probably choose something else. And so there will never be a time where we'll actually all agree that now we need to have an eagle, now we need to have an impala there. So these are things that each one of us actually has certain preferences, but that does not affect the moneyness of money.
What is featured on the new notes, according to Dr. Ndlovu here, is that it is of no value. Whether it is there or it is not there, the money will still be money and we are going to use it. And I feel this really summarizes the entire debate on the features of what is being added to the new notes that are going to be in circulation in no time from now. Your comments and contributions are welcome by way of text messages to the number 0976 151517, and you can still slot in your WhatsApp message on the same number 0976, I beg your pardon, 151517, and we'll be able to read in case you have a question that you want my guest to attend to just before we close the program. Also, those of you that are watching on Facebook and YouTube, you might just want to leave your comment there, and we are going to check on them in a moment and see what you have to say. But as we get to there, before we can check what the viewers have to say, I am looking at the long-term implications, really, of the redesigning of the kwacha. And the first question that comes to mind is, what are the long-term implications of redesigning the kwacha notes for Zambia's economy as well as the financial sector?
So in the long term, we don't expect to have any impact. And that is both for short term and long term. And then secondly, we're saying that the redesigning is something that actually has to continue, because as long as we have higher levels of inflation, the prices will be growing. And so even the 500 that we have, it is a high value note today. 10 years down the line, it will not be able to buy a bag of millimere. And because this kind of trend will continue, it's just inevitable that even the introduction of higher and higher value notes is something that will actually continue. The redesigning also is more of a security issue. And with security issue, you know that even the way we close our houses, the way premises are secured, is that you've got to keep on advancing
True.
and the security issues. So similarly, the central bank has a mandate, has a responsibility to ensure that the money that they are releasing in circulation, nobody else will be able to produce that. So at any given time, there's the level of technology that we have. So what we are able to get now is what we are having. But then over time, technology advances. The ability for these machines to be able to produce anything is something that is changing. And so it's just inevitable that the security features of these notes also has to keep on improving. The other aspect I think they also mentioned is that, you know, we also have to continue to provide for our colleagues that are differently abled. So when you are looking at that, I think one of the things that I actually heard is that with these new notes, it will be much easier for people that are reading using different methods to actually be able to differentiate the different notes. And for me, I think that is a plus. That is something that everyone should actually be welcome, because development has got to be inclusive. So everything that is being done has got to be inclusive. You and I know that in the olden days, not many years back, all buildings had stairs and there was no provision for the disabled. But at some point, I think it became actually a requirement that whenever you are having these stairs, they must actually be a provision for people that are not able to climb those stairs. And so we know that we have people that have different limitations. And so this money has got to be used by all, and it's got to be accessed. It's got to be easy and friendly to people of all categories.
Okay, and in the face of the international community, we usually get concerned because you look at how your neighbor is going to look at your decision and all that. Should we worry? And this is where now Zambians feel the impact on Zambia's reputation and credibility in the international financial community. How will this redesigned note really have an effect or impact?
So there are two ways you can actually look at that question. And I think the easiest way to actually look at, you imagine these cross-border traders, for example, people that are just trading across our borders, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Kasumbalesa over there. So the first thing that they will actually be concerned with is that everybody will be very happy that these monies now have these advanced security features, such that the moment you look at a note, you are very sure that this is a genuine note, because the way it is actually designed, the way it is actually printed, is in such a way that nobody else could actually make that. But then secondly, of course, there's always this concern that whenever there's a change always raises dust. Yeah. And so we always get into this transition when the new notes, people are not yet conversant with the new notes. Because imagine yourself going into Malawi. So you might have known the currency in Malawi there. And then when they make this change, now you temporarily get lost, because now the note that you actually knew is no longer there. And so when you are now looking at this new note, you are not very sure whether this is genuine or not. But over time, everything basically settles. And so to the outside, I would assume that this is how people are actually looking at it. So on the one hand, there's this very welcome decision that the security features are actually being improved upon. But secondly, there could be this worry that, will I actually be able to know that this is a genuine note or not? And of course, sometimes also, you know, the world is also quite complicated. When you think that you are very safe, that is when a thief is about to attack. So sometimes these transitions also may actually provide an opportunity for unscrupulous people to also just chip in. Before people actually know how a new currency looks like, could actually be an opportunity for somebody to sneak in a fake note. Because I mean, central bank has announced that there are new notes, and so what I'm actually giving you is a new note. Likely everybody would accept before they actually see those notes. So there are all these possibilities, but ultimately, these are negligible worries. In the long term, I think every country is trying to advance on their notes. I don't know, people may have actually realized that there are actually, I think, two $100 notes that are actually in circulation They differ slightly, and so if you're not very confident, you may not actually be able to tell that these are different. But when you put them side by side, you may realize that actually, no, there's actually a change. Yeah. So every country is doing that. Every country is actually advancing on these notes. If you have an opportunity of comparing the note that was done in the 90s and the notes that we actually have now, when you look at the security features that are embedded in them, you would actually see that what we are having today is an advancement over what we had in the 90s. And so then it goes without saying that what we should be having in the future must also be more secure, must also have more security features compared to what we are actually having now, so that you and I, no matter how good the printers we should be able to get, we must never get to a point where we are actually able to make something closer to money.
And the fact that time has been given for us to learn all this, understand and all that, will make us be sure of which one is the new, which one is fake and all that. But also maybe your advice from the economical point of view, but also as a citizen, the transition might not be certain. We expect, like you did indicate rightly, that there would be some scrupulous people who will come on board and just flash in something that is unacceptable to the unknowing audience, and then things happen. How would you probably advise for the Bank of Zambia to ensure a smooth transition to the new notes so that everyone is not affected, but everyone accepts what is correct and without being affected? We should be closing now.
So thank you very much for that. So I think to address that question, so first of all, I have heard an announcement that actually the central bank will embark on a massive campaign to sensitize the general public on these monies, and I think it goes without, there's no need to emphasize on that. And so to the general public then, let us take an interest before this money comes. Let us have an idea in terms of what sort of features it should actually have, because when the central bank is sensitizing, and this is something that you are also doing as a media, because our discussion now is basically to try and sensitize one another. And so I'm imagining if the media houses also take it up, then we're actually ruling out a possibility of people actually getting duped. So when they are doing those sensitization, there are a lot of features that they will actually mention. That the money, when you look at it, these are certain things that you should be able to see on it. And so once you take note of those, when you see a new note, you must be able to verify that what they talked about, I'm actually able to see all these features on this note. It shouldn't be like, you know, when you're buying something in town where they tell you, no, you know, this and this one, they're very similar. You know, with the money, there is no similarity. They've got to be identical. They've got to be exactly the same. So if you were told that it will have an ego in a certain position, that money must have an ego in the same position.
No,
it shouldn't be good no year and zopara na mukangana chilipo kumachia bana hivi alako. The issue of no, they forgot to add this one. Must never be there.
Never be there.
So let's take time, let's learn these new features. And I think I've seen a lot of pictures now that are showing even on social media. The central bank is also doing quite a lot in terms of sensitizing. They have those very nice pictures which are actually able to show the both sides of the note, how it will look like on the front and how the back also looks like.
Dr. Ndlovu, unfortunately, time is not with us. We have to end here, but a number of people that are following us, the comments really are just like they are appreciating the information that has been shared on this platform. Somebody is actually asking, what time does this program air? Well, it airs every Monday, Wednesday, as well as Friday at 12:30 on Wednesday and Friday. But Monday we come here slightly earlier at exactly 12 hours to ensure that we accommodate a number of things. But then on our Facebook platform, majority of the people here are appreciating what has been shared, and it's the same trend as it was even on Wednesday, because there are certain things that people didn't know that are actually very critical and important for us to understand and appreciate that we are moving in this direction. So thank you so much for coming through. It's not easy, but then I know you are you are a Christian and you go to church. The 500 kwacha note, Doc. There are some of us that love to count our offering from the pocket. Don't you fear that people end up giving money that they don't intend, and then God says He loves a cheerful giver? I'll be pained because I've dropped in a 500 kwacha when I was hoping it's a 20 kwacha.
You know, those are possibilities that we cannot avoid. And obviously, that is just one example. The other one also is that when people are having these very high value notes, you know, it's very difficult to practice alms giving, because I mean, you're looking at all. The only note that I have is a 500 kwacha. I can't break it. Yeah. But if I had 10 kwachas and there were so many of them, it's very easy to give out. So it means our colleagues that are waiting for us to exercise the charity, obviously it means they'll be at a loss.
We should be planning change more lesser notes so that we continue being a generous people. So, and all that.
Yeah, the offerings in church, I know there was this caricature I was saying, no, but we don't see these bigger notes in churches. And then, you know, the 10 kwacha said, no, us we are found in churches. The bigger notes are found somewhere else.
So now the 100 kwacha will be found in church because there is another bigger note in terms of a 500 kwacha or even a 200 kwacha. Well, this is what we could accommodate in our discussion today. Many thanks to Dr. O'Brien Ndlovu, our guest in the program. He's an economist and he comes all the way from the University of Zambia. And I want to believe that those of you who would love to know more regarding economic issues in this country, well, you can always look out for him, and I'm sure he will be of help the same way he has been of help on this particular program. On behalf of the entire studio and production team, I'm Bright Sinkos. We are back on Monday at 12 hours with Mwene Muyanga. From all of us here, it's God bless, keep watching, and pleasant viewing.